0, and it had to do with the front.
Okay, thank you for coming tonight. We will call the regular council meeting for Tuesday, February 21st to order. If you would all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible. Thank you very much. First item is going to be to approve the amended agenda. If I could get a motion.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is the consent calendar. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to bring up? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as stated.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public to make a comment or bring up anything that is not on the agenda. If you have a question about something on the agenda, we will give you time at that when that item comes up. So with that understanding, is there anyone that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, we will close public comment. The next item is a police department presentation. Prior to that, we are going to present the department with the oath of office. So if I could have each of the officers come up, and we're going to have you stand up here facing the audience. So we got you on camera.
Come on, guys, smile.
We'll get you out. We'll get you out of there. Or you can have one of the guys take it. You want to get in there with them? No. Oh, I what I asked. You want to start this off with I and you state your name. Okay, so go ahead, you raise your right hand, please. I state your name. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer in the city of Nisswa, the state of Minnesota. Thank you. Okay, next item is the police department's annual report. Chief Taylor.
Oh, we're here again. A year already went by. Yeah. Good evening, happy New Year. Well, what I'll do tonight is I'll give you some information on things that we have done in the last year and some things that we intend on doing for next year. After I'm done, Todd will come up and give kind of a rundown of some of the more drilled down information on last year's activities. Then Jeremy will come up and give some background on computer stuff, which I will understand none of it. So that's good for him to tell you himself. And then Connor will give you an update on the canine. And we got it condensed down pretty good. So probably 40 minutes or so for the whole thing should be serious. The first thing is I'd like to congratulate Mayor Ryan, Councilman Zahn, Councilman Hall, and Councilman Fraley for their election wins. Really, it's a noble thing to do public service, and it's not like it's all that rewarding sometimes, and it has its challenges, but we appreciate you doing it, and I know the citizens do as well. And I hope that I will have an opportunity throughout the next year, but maybe even within the next couple of months to meet with each of you if you'd like to discuss police issues. And I would be happy to hear your ideas for the future and give you an opportunity to hear more of my ideas on things that I'd like to see or what the department's needs are going to be. Maybe more importantly, that is, I would like to thank Maggie and Kiki for the assistance that they have given to me specifically. There's been a lot of grammatical and spelling errors that have been averted from public view because of their proofreads. So if you do find any mistakes in it, it's that their fault because they were supposed to go through this and take those out. See, that's what a good person does. They try to blame everyone else, right? But anyway, seriously, thank you for helping us. It's really been appreciative. I'd also like to thank the Nisswa police officers. They have done an excellent job in the last year. Police work, as you can imagine, is difficult, and it's only getting more difficult. And there's no shortage of bad press for us. So we'll take wins when we can give them. And I think that the conduct of this department and its officers makes all of us look good because they conduct themselves with conscientious professionalism, and the skills that they have enhance the department's abilities to provide high level of compassionate service. And as a side note, not in the thing, is Connor arrested 3 DUIs on Friday, one day, and 4 for the weekend. So he's gonna get a hockey stick because that's a hat trick. So that's true. That's a real thing. If you get 3 in a day.
Wow.
So we've never had that happen here before, and it's unfortunate that circumstances exist where that needs to happen, but unfortunately they do. So for 2022, for the total year, we had 294 agency assists. Those would include various local agencies in our area in Crow Wing County, some agencies in Cass County as well, and in the Cass County Sheriff's Department. We've had 2,495 calls for service. Of those, 1,110 were assigned. 1,373 were self-initiated. We issued 11 criminal citations, 207 traffic citations. We've issued 1,462 traffic warnings. So I think that our generosity in providing corrective measures for driving is good. We don't generally write a lot of tickets because we believe that if we can correct the behavior with a warning, that's preferable to us. We made 100 in custody arrests. We had 175 EMS calls, 96 alarms, and we have patrolled 87,000 miles. That would normally be higher if we had new squad cars, but we are really 2 squad cars down because we still haven't got ones from last year or the one from this year. So our cars are getting very tired, and we will start seeing increased maintenance costs, unfortunately. Oh, shoot, I have a PowerPoint here. I'm sorry. Kiki, it's not working. I got so wrapped up in my stuff, I forgot that you guys can see this too. I'll start over. I'm just kidding. See, it's not just me. Oh yeah, I guess it is. Okay, so for the trainings, these are trainings that some of them were attended by one officer. A lot of them were attended by everyone in the department. So things that we do are annual trainings or hearing conservation. I think this is supposed to be lead awareness, which is law enforcement against drugs. And it's not OSHA requirement. It's actually just a post accredited class. Professional protective equipment, portable fire extinguishers, respiratory protection, bloodborne pathogen, aware, employee right to know. EVOC is defensive driving. We've had some leadership classes, leaders and followers, power and influence. Regional workshop, DWI FSTs. FST stands for field sobriety testing. Yes, I should just give that to you. Be easier for me. Within the help continues. De-escalation training, advanced roadside impaired driving, use of force 1, 2, and 3, hazardous materials, Minnesota Police Chiefs Leadership Academy, basic defensive tactics, executive training institute, 72-hour holds, preventing in custody suicides, implicit bias, predatory offender registration and investigations, basic crime scene processing, advanced financial crimes, the use of force, an evolution of an legal standard, mental health, part 1, 2, and 3, low light inclement weather shooting qualification. And as you can probably get some idea, you see a lot more, racial bias training, de-escalation techniques. That's the new, that's going to be the new normal for officers. It's required training by the post board now. So that's kind of the stuff that we have been working on as far as training. There's some other ones that I didn't include, but I would say that our training is pretty thorough and good. So thank you for that. And that is all I have for my part. Is there any questions you'd like to ask me right now, or do you want to wait till the end, or what would you like to do?
We'll wait till the end.
Okay. Sergeant Szymanski will come up and give you his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. As you probably remember last year, towards the end of the year, we got our new sidearms for the department. Went to Glock 9mm versus the 40 caliber ones that we replaced. Some of the benefits for those, the 9mm obviously have less recoil than the 40 caliber, so there's less movement when shooting, which allows you to have increased accuracy and regain your sight picture faster. The 9mm also requires a lighter trigger pull, which can also give you greater accuracy as there's less movement that way as well. Also cost savings.
I'm sorry, this is my fault. I actually wasn't done yet. This is really turning out to be good, isn't it? Had it planned in my head much different, sorry.
So based on some of the major ammunition producers, cost savings going with the 9mm versus the 40mm was about 20% cheaper. The case, which is 1,000 rounds of 9mm duty ammo, was about $250 cheaper than the 40 caliber that we previously had. And then the 9mm practice ammo, which we use for training, was about $100 cheaper per case that way. When we got the new firearms, we had them equipped with these new red dot sights. Basically, when you look through that sight, which is mounted on the top of your firearm, you have a red dot in there and you don't use the iron sights anymore. Benefits or advantages to that. You got a single focal plane, so you're just focusing on that red dot. You don't have to worry about lining your front or rear sights up. Also, the light is much easier to see in low light conditions versus the traditional iron sights, and you can adjust the brightness for that too. With practice, you get a faster sight picture, meaning when you bring it up, everything comes into line easier and is where it should be. Also, easier to stay engaged on moving targets. And so far, it's also provided greater accuracy and tighter grouping when we've been shooting, so especially at longer ranges. Back to the arrests for the year that Craig touched on a little bit earlier. 88 of those were traffic related. 7 were based off warrant services, and we had 4 that were requested in one way or another by another agency. Of the traffic arrests, charges stemming from those, there was 25 related to alcohol for driving under the influence, 8 for driving under the influence of a controlled substance. Possession of controlled substances, there's 20 of those arrests involved possession of methamphetamine, 2 for heroin, 2 for fentanyl, and 30 of those people were arrested on warrants. Some of the more notable controlled substance seizures for last year, all related to traffic stops. There's 56.19 grams of methamphetamine, 44.8 grams of methamphetamine, both which resulted in charges for first-degree sales. Also one other traffic stop where there was 90 grams of fentanyl seized, which resulted in some second-degree drug sale charges, so. Any questions for me on that stuff at all, or any further? All righty, that's all I have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that one of the new squad?
That's a squad car we ordered. It just came in.
Okay.
I'm really apologize for this. Is messed up. I did not, something got messed up, but if we could go back to, I'll explain to you what we've done in the past and what we kind of intend on doing. And I'll go really quick. Yeah, projects. So we're gonna continue with the Lexipol policy implementation. That has been a very big project, and it will continue for a long time. We also purchased the guns. We have decided that we probably should start touring some of our businesses and the schools and, large gathering places in case we have to respond to active crimes. And we're going to continue to do that, and we'll work with the chamber on some of that too. Get your help and maybe work with your business owners to do some stuff. We work with the chamber on a number of events, as you can see there, the lighting, 4th of July parade. We do foot patrol. We're going to continue to do foot patrolling and try to increase foot patrol for next year. We did kind of get away, a little bit away from it because of COVID. We'll go back to our past practices of making a point to go through the businesses and stuff like that. We've had some requests from business owners to do that, and we will accommodate them. And we've done traffic control for their events, the Run for the Lakes and Nisswa Jubilee. We're in the process of implementing our Axon cameras, our body worn cameras. We have them. We have, I think, pretty much got all of our software that we need to use them. We just don't have mounts for them yet, so we have nowhere to put them. Those are on back order. Probably will come with the squad cars, I'm guessing. Maybe not, but we're going to increase officer visibility downtown. We're going to try to be more active in the Nisswa school. We are talking about and going to likely plan a open house for the police department this spring. There's a couple other things we've been talking about that we might try to do, community engagement type things, not decided yet on all of them, but we're working on it. We're thinking through it. And want to increase our efforts in building community relationships with the Legion and the Chamber and the Lions. We're going to increase scenario-based training in firearms. So rather than just target shooting, we're going to actually employ tactical maneuvering while we're doing more so than we've done, moving and shooting at different targets, reacquiring targets, and maybe utilizing shooting into some of our old impound cars, and using them as props and stuff, shooting around them, maybe even in them. Incorporate the Axon in squad cameras when they arrive, and then we will still work towards full Lexipol implementation, which, like I said, that will be an ongoing project forever, really. And that's our plans for next year. I think Jeremy. You're gonna click it.
Doesn't work for anyone else. Why would it work for me? I guess we'll find out. I'm Officer Jeremy Rooney, for those of you who don't know me. Thank you for having us tonight and giving us the opportunity to kind of present this. So as some of you might know, I do a lot of the technical investigations for the city related to computer crimes and financial crimes. So I just kind of want to go over some of that. One of the things that the Nisswa Police Department came into back in 2018 was the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which we're an affiliate member of to this day. Just kind of a quick tidbit about that. It's basically to investigate and prosecute those who exploit children on the internet. It's also very much about education, educating the public, educating parents on keeping their kids safe. It's also about investigating and doing effective responses in cyber enticement, child pornography cases, encompassing forensic investigative components, training, technical assistance, victim services, and committee outreach. So it's a joint effort, multi-jurisdictional effort. We've been an affiliate agency since 2018. One of the things that it's offered us as an agency is we've been able to receive several $1,000s in training. And then the associated costs with that training through grants that are provided by the Department of Justice through ICAC to better prepare us and to serve our citizens in these types of cases. We've been involved in proactive chat operations in conjunction with Homeland Security Investigations, the Minnesota BCA, and Crow County Sheriff's Office. That's I think the two operations I've been involved in. We netted over 10 arrests on adult males attempting to meet children for sexual purposes in the Lakes area. And as well as self-initiated possession of child pornography investigations, and then other reported online sexually based offense investigations involving children. So with a proactive possession of child pornography case actually came to fruition this year. That was in a case initiated by myself back in 2020 and was resolved by court disposition this year, with the party being held responsible. Evidence that was collected and shown that he had been doing this for multiple years prior to law enforcement intervention. It just wasn't caught, wasn't held accountable prior to that. Scams and fraud are another big thing in our area. So these are some national stats. So IC3 is the Internet Crimes Complaint Center. It's run by the FBI. It collects data nationwide. This just kind of gives you an idea. I think if you take anything from this slide, you can see that there's a significant increase annually nationwide. Looking back over the past 5 years, numbers for 22 haven't quite come in yet, but I would beg to say that we'll probably see an increase on that line item as well. Here's where Minnesota ranks. So we rank 26th in number of victims and 20th in total losses at over $82.5 million in losses. This is just from 21. So, and keep in mind too, this is also reported. A lot of these crimes go unreported. People are embarrassed to admit that sometimes they get had. We took multiple fraud and scam related crime reports through 22. Year-end losses for fraud and scam related crimes against Nisswa residents was over $155,000. I think the biggest year I've seen in my time here, I've been here just over 6 years, was double that. So as much as that is, we're actually did pretty well last year. Some notable cases from last year. We had a sexual extortion case, which has become more commonplace of late. That's where Internet Crimes Against Children kind of comes into play with scams and fraud crimes. It's kind of all wrapped into one. So a resident of ours, juvenile resident of ours, was enticed into self-producing child pornography, and then sharing that with who he believed to be a similar aged female. That similar aged female turned out to be a Nigerian scammer. He was then extorted for several $100s in gift cards. After doing search warrants on the social medias that were used, it was determined that everything tied back to Nigeria. This type of crime is becoming so rampant and so concerning, it's resulted in multiple suicides nationwide. The FBI, as well as the Department of Homeland Security Investigations, has formed a joint task force with boots on the ground in Nigeria, as well as the Ivory Coast and some other Western African countries where a lot of these scams stem from, and are taking enforcement action with, in conjunction with African authorities. So we're actually reaching out and touching some of these people for the first time in history. An online exploitation case, a internet vigilante of sorts reported they were in a chat room posing as a 13 and 14-year-old female when a 17-year-old male started engaging them in conversation and soliciting sexually explicit images from them. It was found that the male resided here in town. The way the statute's written, that you can't be charged with online exploitation until you're 18 years of age. He actually turned 18 during my investigation, but he actually committed the crimes at 17. So he cannot be held criminally liable for that. So I made every effort I could to kind of put the fear into him, for lack of better words. I met with him and had a pretty good conversation with him. And then I met with his parents and had the same conversation. So hopefully he makes better choices in the future and doesn't get himself into real trouble. Digitally facilitated harassment. Female resident reported being harassed via the social media application TikTok. That investigation is still pending to see what happens there. We had a pretty significant fraud. Out of that 155,000, one victim was 121, almost 122,000. This has become, from what I've been hearing from banking institutions as well as other law enforcement, this is becoming popular. Scammers are using what they call spoofing, which is where they make a phone number appear as if it's coming from a different location than it really is. So they will spoof the phone number to a known bank, or someone will cold call and say, your banking information has been compromised. Can you please verify who you bank with? They'll say, well, I bank with First National Bank. Now all of a sudden there's a First National Bank is calling them. But it's just a scammer spoofing. Pequot actually had a case like this that involved Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So that's also being seen in the area as well. But this gal was told that an account containing over $100,000 was compromised. She needed to secure the funds in that, was encouraged to send the money to a third party for safekeeping, resulting in the loss of over $121,000. That's still a pending investigation between us, the FBI, and the Hong Kong Police Service, because it does have ties to Southeast Asia. So, criminal sexual conduct. We received a third-party report of a juvenile on juvenile CSC that was suspected to be a forced rape that occurred in our city. I did the initial soft interview with the victim. With juvenile victims, how we go about talking with them is considerably different than how we go about talking to adults, just due to their capacity to understand things sometimes that have happened to them and be able to communicate that appropriately. So when I say soft interview, it's I went out basically to speak with the victim just enough to determine whether or not the allegations were true or not. And then at that point, I stop the interview and we bring in a forensic interviewer who's specifically trained in forensic interviewing protocol for juveniles and vulnerable adults. And that investigation is also still pending. A check fraud. I am not. Oh, yes. Okay. I had to think what case this was. Sorry. So we had a business owner here in town reported a couple of checks were altered. Turns out they were actually reprinted. The banking information was just stolen off the checks. The endorsement signature was superimposed, probably using a computer program, and then reprinted in two different males' names, and they were cashed in counties in southern Minnesota. I conducted the investigation under the premise that the victim resided here. Once it was submitted to the Crown County Attorney's Office, they advised that prosecutorial authority resided in the counties in southern Minnesota. So I reached out to the investigators at two different agencies down there, and I worked with them to get it submitted to the proper prosecutorial agencies. We were able to positively ID both suspects who have a lengthy criminal history in this type of activity. So hopefully they will be brought to justice and some damages can be collected in the victim's behalf. So we were able to discover some new systems and tools this year. LEAP, or Law Enforcement Enterprise Portal, is a web portal that offers multiple different databases, tools, and recourses for various types of investigations, and it's law enforcement only. So there's information sharing systems on there. There's encrypted email abilities or encrypted file sharing. Excuse me. There's training opportunities. And it's managed by the FBI. NDCAC, or National Domestic Communications Assistance Center, is a web portal that offers multiple different databases, tools, and resources as well for digital investigations. The reason I sought access to this system through the FBI was for some of the free software that they provide, including a software called Castaviz and .social. So what Castaviz is it allows us to take the raw data from cell phone warrants. So if we write a search warrant to a cell phone company like Verizon or AT&T, T-Mobile, it comes back in a very complex, hard to read, hard to understand platform and format. And it can take days to go through it manually. This program allows us to upload that raw data into it, and it makes it into a very nice, pretty colorful picture for us. So it's not only easier, but it's considerably less time consuming to be utilized. And then .social does the similar thing, but with social media dumps. So when we do a search warrant to Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, kind of the same thing. We often get back a bunch of raw data that is often difficult to go through and understand, and it's very time consuming to manually go through that. So this program allows us to dump that raw data into it. And once again, it prints out a nice, pretty picture for us that makes it easier to understand and go over the data in a less time consuming manner. And the best part, it's all free. The federal government provides that to us. Now it's a little bit of paperwork to get in because it's all law enforcement proprietary and can't just be allowing anybody and their brother to get in. But other than that, it doesn't cost us a dime. So, and there's a picture and now it's Connor and Sherry's turn.
I want to say one thing for it, because you're not gonna be able to follow the dog, so. Not everyone got to present anything tonight, but I just want to recognize, Luke Hall actually did most of this. So to give him credit for that, he's sick tonight. So he'll be seeking you out to get sworn in officially. And then Matt Thompson, he's done a great job this year. He works hard, comes to work every day and gives 100%. So next year, maybe you'll be presenting something. You tell he's really excited about that. I can't wait. And I guess the next thing speaks for itself.
So this is Sherry, obviously. We'll see how well she sits still for this, but sit. Good. Wait. Okay, so how do you press next? Just right on the side? Okay. So we got Sherry from Can-Am Tactical, which is a local company. We got her in January of 22. We began narcotics detection training in January. Come down. Wait. We had trials, so we did roughly 3 to 4 months of initial imprinting with narcotics. She's imprinted on meth, crack, cocaine, and heroin. So she began tracking article searches and obedience training in May after trials. And we finished with all of our training in July. We continued training throughout the year to maintain proficiency in tracking article searches and narcotics detection. So in 2022, we logged over 240 hours of training in all those categories. We used training aids for narcotics detection. Some were provided by the DEA. For canine handlers, they'll send out narcotics that they actually seize, and they're all pure, so it's all tested from their lab. And then we'll also use stuff from closed cases, so we can get on local stuff too. We utilize a canine track software, which is a cloud-based logging system. It's all for support purposes. It's pretty easy to track and release stuff if defense attorneys request it. So So in 2022, we deployed 33 times. I'm gonna say we were roughly going for maybe 6 months out of the year. We certified in narcotics, obviously in April, and then we were done with tracking in July. So in 6 months, we roughly did the 33 times, or 20 of these deployments were assisting other nearby agencies, including tracking fleeing suspects and requests for narcotic searches. Agencies assisted included LATED, which is our local drug task force, Paul Bunyan Drug Task Force, that's a collaborative effort between a lot of agencies up in the Bemidji, Cass Lake area, Cass County, Crow Wing County, Brainerd PD, Baxter PD, Pequot, Breezy, and Crosby. So pretty much everyone around the area has utilized it, and it's only fair because before we had her, we utilized them quite a bit. So multiple deployments for narcotic sniffs resulted in drug and cash seizures. Deployments continued. We conducted narcotic sniff of vehicles, storage lockers. The drug task force will occasionally have us go sniff storage lockers, and then obviously we can't go in there, but it aids us in writing a warrant. And then houses following search warrants. Just in late 22, we located a felony assault suspect after he fled from Pequot PD. He fled, wasn't super far, but a few hundred yards into a swamp, and we found him laying down covered in mud trying to hide. So that was kind of neat. Community events. Sherry attended multiple events in Nisswa throughout 2022, including the July 4th parade, Nisswa Fall Festival, and the City of Lights. Sherry's a hit with everyone of all ages, and the kids love to see her. Sherry also got a donation it's a combo ballistic tracking vest. Fundraising was organized by Jenny Holmes, local here in Nisswa. Money was quickly raised thanks to generous donations from Sourcewell, Nisswa Lions, and other private donors. So plans for 23, we actually already attended trials this last week and passed without an issue. So we're certified with the United States Police Canine Association again. Again, that's an annual certification, so we have to go every year. We're gonna try to attend further training regarding canine specific case law, tracking and trailing training and narcotic sniffs, as well as patrol deployments, and hopefully have more deployments in 2023 now that initial training's done. So that's all I had. Do you guys have any questions? Nothing?
Hmm.
Good. Good, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Do you have any questions?
I guess I just have one. I should know this, but are you guys carrying Narcan?
No, we don't have Narcan.
Narcan, yeah.
If you have any questions, I would just say that your feedback on the presentation would be appreciated. If there's anything that you don't want to see presented next year, or something that we didn't do that you'd like to see, let me know so I can make note of it, and we can make sure you guys are getting the information that you want to know about.
I think it was a great presentation. It was nice to see some of the actual cases that took place in our community that really
Yeah.
we're not always privy to, nor is the community. So
It's actually very surprising to know what goes on, and
Yeah.
Jeremy, there's a lot of technical knowledge that needs to be known, and not a lot of departments our size have that.
Yeah.
So we're pretty self-sustaining and investigate our own cases, and we do hardly ever ask for any assistance from other agencies, other than depending if location requires it, but because of knowledge, we never do. We usually we have the tools to do it ourselves. So again, thank you very much. It's been.
I do have one question. It is probably for Jeremy. So what do we do with, because I know a lot of times like certain groups will come up and they'll run like a prostitution ring out of a hotel or something, things that used to happen in the past. That are we seen any increases of things like that, and with like the VRBOs and stuff, then they start advertising on the net? And
So there's not a lot of, unfortunately, outstate representation in human trafficking efforts is probably arguably lacking. I mean, the focus on human trafficking efforts is very concentrated to metropolitan areas. I think the furthest north consistent human trafficking effort is done by St. Cloud PD. And they actually have a task force. Duluth also does some work too. There's nobody that I'm aware of, other than maybe the BCA on occasion, that's doing any consistent efforts to human trafficking in our area. There is some minimal data on the existence of human trafficking and sexual exploitation when it comes to the lakes have been mentioned in the past during ice fishing season as a potential demand. And there is some minimal data that shows that there might be some something to that. But unfortunately, yeah, there's just not a lot of effort being put into it right now, and there's just not a lot of data to support how bad it is or isn't. I will tell you that the data does show that where there is a demand, there's a supply, and where there's a supply, there's a demand. When you see and I hate to say it from a standpoint of man bashing, but when you see very male centric events like ice fishing extravaganza, deer hunting opener, fishing opener, things like that, you will often see a drive in the demand as well as the existence of the supply. I know a few years ago we did ended up being a result of a training, but we intercepted a male party that was attempting to participate in human trafficking. And that was the day before deer hunting opener. The state does have a human trafficking task force that is state run, but most of those affiliate agencies are based out of the metro. So they focus a lot of their efforts on the metro. Some federal agencies have make some efforts up on in the Indian reservation areas because there's a disproportionate victimization of indigenous people. So I know the feds have taken a stand on that, but I could say that it's most likely happening around here, but not in the numbers that you would see in other places. One of the things that has made also for hard detection of this type of activity is what was it, 2019, I think. FOFSA was a federal legislation, and basically what that did was hold internet companies liable for the content they host. So that's when we saw the website Backpages, if you're familiar with that, was seized by the Department of Justice in conjunction with the FBI and taken offline. Unfortunately, 10 sites sharing their website code popped up on foreign servers the next day. And then Craigslist deactivated their personals section of their website as well. And the reason for that was for FOSSA, because those two sites were often used for the advertising of commercial sex. And with FOSSA, Craigslist and or Backpages could be held criminally liable for those ads. So to mitigate their criminal liability, they did away with those. So as a result, those advertisements and efforts on traffickers have been driven deeper into the black hole that is the internet. A lot of the websites that those ads and stuff are hosted on now require verification. And by verification, I mean you have to have partaken in some of those services and get verified by the servicers in order to go on those websites. So it makes it almost impossible for law enforcement to gain access to those sites. And most of those sites are foreign based. So they're out of the reach of traditional law enforcement. So as great as a legislation that was, it made it increasingly difficult for law enforcement to detect those. So prior to that, I would spend time on Craigslist, on Backpages, seeing what was going on in our area, seeing who was advertising, things like that, and trying to make an effort on combating trafficking and sexual exploitation in our area. But unfortunately, in recent years, that's become increasingly difficult. So that's kind of a long-winded answer. I hope that kind of answered your question.
it does.
But yeah.
Chief, I have one
We
question.
can go longer if you want.
I have one question for you though. It's something that's pertinent to what's on the docket tonight for us. Do you have any feedback that you'd like to present to us in regards to any issues that you're seeing within Nisswa for short-term rentals, such as like an Airbnb, a VRBO, having for example, a bachelor party coming up here, and you're seeing an issue be presented because of any group, for an example. Do you have any feedback that you can present to us tonight?
Well, without being able to go look at some records and see, nothing rings a bell as far as anything like that. If we do have some problems with resorts at times with
Right.
groups of, but nothing, normal stuff. I'd have to research that.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you right now, but any other questions?
Duty ammo versus practice ammo, is the duty ammo hollow tip? No.
Yeah,
Technical
I guess so.
question.
I
Curiosity.
could take a look. Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Are there hydro shocks or not? Yes. Okay, yeah, see, I don't know anything about guns and bullets, so should have asked them. Sorry, I don't have good answers, but it really has been our pleasure to be here before you
Thank you.
tonight and to give you information.
Thank
Again,
you all very much.
if there's something that you want to see that we didn't give, let me know. If there's something that you just don't want to hear about again, let me know that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it, guys. Okay, next item is the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of the council. A couple items for you tonight. The first item is just my monthly report. I provided the council some updates regarding the Gull Lake Trail and the roundabout projects. Certainly can answer questions if you have them, and also an update on the short-term rental licensing. We will be talking more about that under new business as we have some action items for you tonight. I've included some legislative updates. A couple of financial updates, mostly surrounding the upcoming workshops that we're going to have, and just a reflection that our year-end audit went really well. Thanks to Maggie for putting a lot of effort and time into pulling all of those documents together. So I appreciate that. And also Mayor Ryan and I will be attending the Day on the Hill event on March 9th. So we will be visiting with Representative Heinzman and Senator Eichhorn. And we'll be bringing a one-page summary of things that are happening in Nisswa and some of the important legislation that's coming through that is going to impact us. So we'll be having conversations and just seeing where that goes. Any questions on my report?
I have one myself in
Yeah.
regards to legislative updates, for the cannabis legislation. You spoke about in your report, the moratorium expiring. Is that a 1 year? Okay,
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
all right.
Does that not go until 2025 though, as a city? We have the ability, I was reading that on the state site, that we have the ability, I believe it said until 2025 to ban that. Is that correct?
Gonna see if Tom knows. My understanding is the moratorium we put in place is good for 1 year. Not to say we can't revisit the issue, but I think that's going to be dependent on a lot of what happens at the legislature with adult use cannabis. But Tom, any thoughts?
I haven't looked at that statute for a while, but as I recall, it can be extended once within the original term for a period of time. But Joe, I don't know about 2025. That would strike me as a little far reaching, but I think within the original 1 year, it can be extended if study is continuing.
We can double check that though, so we know what time frame we're working on. No problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? City attorney.
Oh, no, I have two more items. I just wanted to make
you
sure
have more. Oh,
on my report. So the second item I have is a reviewed update of the city council code of conduct policy. So the code of conduct policy was adopted by the council in October of 2020, and it's been a couple of years and we haven't discussed it much or referenced it since then. It's a good document and there are a lot of applicable sections to it that helps new council members or, even seasoned council members work through issues, thoughts, ideas, concerns. It does outline and articulate some roles and responsibilities for the council, for staff. And also there's a short section on the council liaison specific component to our structure for our organization. And I thought it would be a good time to dust this off and to look at this policy to see if the council had any feedback or thoughts on areas that we could either add some language or modify depending on your perspective. So certainly not something we have to decide on tonight. I will take feedback if you have it tonight, but I am looking to have this back on the agenda for updating and approval at the March meeting. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at that and letting me know if you have feedback, that would be great. Otherwise, any comments tonight would be helpful as well. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to review it and make sure that it's complete and accurately reflects our structure and organization as it is today. Any questions or feedback for me now?
Sure, initial question, who put this together?
I originally put this together, basically borrowing it from another city and modifying it for Nisswa as best as possible.
Okay, does the League of Minnesota already have this done at their level for us to copy?
They wouldn't have their own, but they would provide us with other cities that would have their adopted versions of similar to what the process I did was to just find some from other cities and modify it.
Was this the original one put together for the city, or prior to you putting together, has there been one existing in the city already?
There was not one existing before this one.
Anyone else have anything on that?
So you, just so I'm clear, you're asking for us to review it and then come back next month with more questions, comments, feedback? Or are you looking for us to individually reach out to you within the next month?
If it's doable, I would appreciate just connecting with me individually. If you have comments or feedback, then I can prepare and update the document to present to the council in March. Certainly, if we need more time, that's not a problem at all. But if you have the opportunity to review it and share your thoughts, that'd be great. But certainly let me know if you need more time.
Does this have tie-in or reference to city employee codes and conducts also on their behalf, where it would link the two together? For instance, one of us talking to a city employee, is that reflected in a city employee code of conduct manual also? Does that make sense?
It does. I guess offhand, I'd have to take a look at our personnel policy to see what's referenced there as compared to here. This document does identify roles and responsibilities for council, for staff, for advisory commissions and committees. The employee personnel policy really discusses more respectful workplace and how to walk through those scenarios if there's an issue. But I can definitely cross-reference, or if there's something that we need to incorporate to make both kind of work together, we can certainly look at that.
So this one specifically is for the 5 of us?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Is there one specifically for the city administrator position, and is that defined in here also?
There's no separate document for city staff for
Okay,
code of conduct, if that's what you're asking.
right. I was just wondering, yeah, I'd almost view that there would be a separate one for the city administrator position as well as the department heads, and then as well as staff. Just chain of command, stuff like that, somebody directly talking to per se, like one of Craig's officers. Is that stated that it goes from us to Craig to an officer, things like that?
Sure,
From you
sure.
to
Yeah.
Craig,
Yeah.
but I guess I'd look for that also.
That is reflected in our personnel policy as far as how to, more from if there's an issue, how to work through the process, and how to do that. Some of that's reflected in here, but based on your questions, I think I understand what you'd like to see. So I will look at that as well.
Okay, those are just a couple of quick things that jump out at me.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No.
I think this kind of encompasses some conversations that we've had in the past. Jenny, I know you and I had spoken, just trying to get some clarity as to I like the reference you had, dusting off some documents and seeing what we have for established protocols for communication, and understanding titles of individuals, department heads and their subordinates that work with them for their departments, understanding the roles, titles, duties, responsibilities for each people, each individual within those departments. Then the coordination with the liaisons for those specific departments, then your role as city admin. I think this will be a good opportunity for all of us as we now have a new council to go over it and really refresh ourselves and see if there's any additional input that we can all have to it and go from there. So.
Yeah, I guess I have one other question with this. As far as the city policies, for instance, like decisions made by the city administrator versus the council versus the mayor, when that is set forth in forgive me, the technical term of the big binding documents that lays out all city conduct. What's that packet called within the city?
Well, our ordinances.
Yeah,
Yep,
like our
the city
city
code.
ordinances and stuff.
Yep.
I guess I'm just wondering, is this referenced also to the different ordinances in there? Was this derived also in line with the ordinances, for instance? Who's involved in a personnel issue, do we find that information in here or in an ordinance as far as, when the mayor would get together with the city administrator to deal with something when it becomes a council decision, is that criteria defined in here or in the ordinance or both? Or how are they tied together?
So that would be less in our city code, more reflected in our policies, mostly through our personnel policies. With regards to that, there are a couple of references to ordinances in this policy, so it certainly doesn't contradict our city code. To what depth the references are in this document compared to ordinances. There's probably not going to be a lot of specific references. We have a purchasing policy, ordinance. We have obviously state statute references and things like that for just overall what the council can do, statute ability, things like that. But there's not a ton, but we can certainly look at that as well.
Other questions?
If anyone doesn't have a copy of the personnel policy, I'd recommend getting one and then going through it, and that would be a good thing too, to bring yourself up to speed on what the personnel policies say. And then there is a process in the personnel policy, correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, but of how complaints issues are handled. And there's the personnel committee and then there's from the personnel committee, what can and can't be brought to the council's attention, even from disciplinary matters. It's very limited what the council gets to know, if I'm correct, Tom. There can be limiting factors there where certain personnel issues we don't get to know about. We don't have the right to know it. We have very limited things that we do as a council. We hire, we terminate, and we promote. But that's pretty much it. That's why then you have outside of the personnel policy, then you have your collective bargaining agreements and anything that might be in those that could be different. If it's not addressed in the union contract, then personnel policy, the city's policy should dictate or dictates. Then we go by that. So there's a number of things that that if you don't have them, we should get them. You can get them. It's public data. And then go through them, and that might help answer some questions, or it might bring up others. It's just either way.
No, for sure. And based upon that ordinance, this ordinance, we're running off Plan A with the state versus Plan
Yes,
B.
for statutory plan A city.
Plan Stan A.
Yep. Great, thank you.
Okay.
The last item I have is a request from Sourcewell to appoint 2 council members to participate in the representative assembly on April 19th. This is not an obligation that the council has, but if any council members were interested in participating in this event, I provided the email that I received. If anyone would like to participate, council can appoint up to 2 members to attend the event on behalf of the city of Nisswa. So I just wanted to give the opportunity if anyone was interested.
I would be happy to attend. I don't know what, I tried to pick up more information off of what that actually taking place, but didn't see much.
It's mostly just an event. Sourcewell will talk about what they've been doing, giving back to their members, what they're doing for the upcoming year. And there is also a student of character celebration for the students within their region, that there's a little bit of a celebration if it's a lunch thing or whatever that they do. So I don't think it's anything pretty intensive. It's just a way to participate and see and learn more about what Sourcewell is doing. That's so certainly up to you.
I'd be happy to go if bring that information back.
Okay.
What they have.
Great.
Potentially learn some more funding options for things.
Funding options are great. Yes. Okay.
So,
If there's no objections to that, I will report back. Mayor Ryan has chosen to participate. Anyone else?
you else want to go?
Okay, thank you. That's all I
Okay.
have.
City attorney.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have anything specific to report at this agenda item. I've got some things coming up later, I think, that I'll be involved in, but nothing else. So if there are questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, that's my report.
City engineer.
I copied his report, but if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And you guys will have some things too after the meeting.
Very good. Then we're on to new business. First item is from approve the final park master plan.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Nisswa Parks and Recreation Master Plan as presented earlier.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion on the matter?
Could you define exactly what we are approving and what we aren't?
We're approving the plat, this parks master plan that you received in your
Yep.
packet. That's what we're receiving. The overview of what we got. Do you want Amber to come up and give a quick explanation or?
I'm just wondering what this vote, what this brings us to for the next step, I guess.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Amber or Jenny, but this brings us to, this is our guideline. This is what we're going to be looking at. It doesn't cost anything. It's not, we're not obligated to follow it to the letter. We may have to make adjustments and things as we go, but this is giving us our roadmap to go out. Okay, now how do we seek out these things? How are we going to get from point A to point B to C? And do we do it like we had asked earlier? Is it going to be phase by phase? Is it going to be, what part of it is going to happen first and that's the next step. But this is the roadmap. This is what we're looking at. This is the plan we're looking at following. So like our comp plan, this is the roadmap. This is the guiding document. This is what we'd like to see done. So now that we've determined what we're looking, this would be, okay, we've determined what we want. Now we got to start working on getting there. And that's what staff.
So is it safe to say then that the design concept stage is done?
Amber?
I would say, I mean, yeah, Amber can
Yeah.
certainly come up. I mean, we hope that we've vetted a lot of the options and we've taken in community feedback and this is a reflection of that.
Would it be fair to say the actual design of each component is, this is what we high value, this is what we're looking at, but we're not frozen on this. It doesn't have to be like everything in here.
Yeah, I'll say it's a living document. It will evolve over time. It's a 20-year plan, so it's inevitable that things are gonna change. This plan is not to an engineering level. That's gonna dictate some of the things. We haven't gotten to any design. That might alter it a little bit. But when you look at the headings of the system initiatives, I would say that outlines kind of the framework and our goals moving forward. I think there's about 8 or 9 of them. So when you look at those categories, under those categories are really what we're trying to achieve. The how might be different over time, what
Sure.
that looks like.
Sure.
So I would say yes, right now we have vetted a lot of the different things in terms of design. What we think might be achievable, feasible, based on what we currently have, what current interest is, where our current investments we want to see going. Kind of discussed all of that.
Sure.
So it sounds like we're just focusing on where we'd like to go at this point.
Yep, taking a snapshot of where we're at, kind of some of those next initial steps, as we talked about some of the life cycle things that are turning over in the very near future. But we're gonna have a lot of discussion and a lot of decisions coming up. So I'd say within those system initiatives, it gives us our guiding kind of principles to work within. And then as Kevin said earlier, we kind of have that document in the back that kind of helps kind of work through the next questions, the staffing components, the operational level, and what within that are the next questions and steps and things to accomplish, the how.
Sure, and I guess that's the motive behind my question, you know, that this is a legitimate step forward, you know, in a year from now. We're not going to be sitting here rehashing a new presentation on this, and that, you know, looking at maybe a bigger picture that wasn't presented tonight and just saying, okay, now we're on to step 2 of 20.
Right.
Right.
Well, there's no
So-
shortage of things for the city to
Right.
consider, and we know that. And they all minimally impact each other to, you know, largely impact each other, but within the focal point of parks, this is our goal, and we have infrastructure that needs to be addressed timely.
Right, yep. Okay, I just wanted clarification, so, thank you.
Anything else? Good. All right, we have a second, and there's no other questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is a special event permit request for Notice Wellness. This is for their, is it triathlon? No. Mindfulness triathlon.
It is, and I do have a question. Oh, we have someone here. Oh,
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Okay.
Would you like to introduce yourself? And
Yes, I'm Danielle Arnold. I'm the owner of Notice Wellness in Nisswa Square. I've taken over the yoga studio, and I'm also a licensed mental health therapist, and I have my private practice out of there as well.
wonderful, thank you. I did have one quick question. Are you working with the DNR on getting a permit from
Yes.
them for the trail use?
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
okay, so that's in process.
Yep.
So I would think approval would be contingent upon getting that confirmation from the DNR. And if there's any other questions, certainly.
Did you have any idea when you were gonna get that from them, or have they given you any?
I mean, it was kind of like you have everything submitted. We just need to get like final back to you, but everything looks good. So I didn't get like
Yeah.
an official, you're in the clear, but they said everything looks great. We have everything we need.
You'll get something from them, but
Okay.
I'm not surprised that you don't have it yet.
Okay.
Just based on the timing of the event, it might
Mhm.
come a little closer to that. So,
Okay.
Yeah, not a problem.
Sure.
I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a special event permit request from for Notice Wellness, the Mindful Triathlon contingent on approval from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources.
And I'll second that.
Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to all who helped me with the application process.
You wanna run that?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I'm gonna do I think it's the
Joe's.
color run then. I did a 5K in college. We'll see how 10K goes.
Council team event?
Sure, yeah.
Next item is approve the Nisswa Chamber of Commerce 2023 event list.
We did have a couple of questions come from the Parks Department. Nothing that can't be worked out logistically with Pam. Just wanting to make sure that those are known, timing for, timing for using the community center parking lot and things like that. So I've communicated those to Pam, and I we'll anticipate she'd work with Amber on those details. No concerns received from police, fire, or public works departments.
I'll
Is there-
entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the 2023 event summary as presented by the Nisswa Chamber of Commerce.
I'll second.
Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mayor
Pam, I-
Ryan, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Pam, I'd like to say thank you for everything that you do. I don't know how much appreciation you get from many of us on this end, but I can only imagine the amount of planning and I organized my first golf tournament this past summer, and I think I put more man hours into that than my actual business just for a one-day event. So thank you. Yes, thank you.
Mayor Ryan, if I could, there are a couple of things in the packet. I didn't know if Pam wanted to speak to them about them tonight. If you want to come back another night, you have a priorities list and you have some ADA information. So I'm just wanting to make sure that whatever you'd like to do.
That other stuff that I gave for the ADA compliant is just passing that on to the city for stuff that I hear from the chamber.
Okay.
You know, as far as people being able to park appropriately and us following the rules.
Okay.
The wish list is something that I divvied out what I think the city is responsible for, what I think the chamber is responsible for. I have since started a foundation, a pretty good Nisswa foundation, that a lot of the monies will cover the things on my wish list. So it's separated into 3 entities. We had talked about the downtown sound and splitting up that cost and stuff like that. That's on that wish list. And what else was there? Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Great.
Makes sense. Questions?
I have a question. Where, if you had your perfect spot, where would that digital sign be?
We had talked at one time, I think it was Brittany or Jenny, about it maybe down by, where you would turn to come to the roundabout.
Mhm.
So if you're coming from South 371, you're coming north,
Mhm.
it would sit like right up there in that spot that we purchased from. Where did the city purchase the land back from? The state or something like
Yes,
that?
we received, yeah, the land back.
That's where I'm thinking. If we had a sign like that, I think that it would go there.
Sure,
Just an idea. It would be a really great way to get all of our events out.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is a recommendation from the Public Works Committee, reference policy for driveway standards.
So I guess the first thing I would ask is, do any of you have any questions regarding what was in the packet?
If you could just go over the background, kind of what got this driving, what kind of got this started.
Sure. So there was some issues related to a development off of Roy Lane, Bass Lake Road. There was a driveway that was going to be constructed that would possibly become part of a roadway at that time. And so there were some questions raised about width of the driveway, and so you'll notice this addresses the widths of driveways. And it kind of morphed more from there. We adapted the standard from a county standard. And so it describes how driveways, when they interact with the road right of way, how they'll do that. Again, it deals with widths, types of culvert, size, things of that nature. And so it just gives us a uniform way of looking at those from application to application that we didn't have before.
Yeah, previously we had nothing out there. So now this is to help to make it more uniform, and also to not to have certain roads that don't meet the standards that we want them to actually meet.
One good example of this is that it won't allow someone to put a driveway in within just a few feet of a stop sign in an intersection, for instance, obviously that would create traffic problems, so this defines that.
And I noticed in here you had a minimum or a not to exceed width. Not to exceed 20 feet. That wasn't the driving portion though, right? That was the whole, or that's the entrance. And maybe I got myself confused in that one. So, they can expand, item, it's in the design portion, it says under,
Yeah.
number 4, residential entrances shall not exceed 20 feet in width measured at right angles to the center line of the driveway. So they can up to a 20-foot wide driveway, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Anyone have any questions for Tom?
No.
Is there anything in here you see that's missing or still needs to be added to this?
Nothing that I could have identified, or I would try to place it in here. I will say that we probably didn't think of everything, so if things come up, bring it to our attention, we will modify this as necessary.
I did ask you too about fees.
Correct. Oh, thank you, John, for reminding me. So there is a line in here where I reference a fee that would be collected for this. We will not be collecting a separate fee to assess driveways. I already do that. We felt that the logistics of collecting the fee was probably more onerous than just taking care of it. So.
I apologize, it might be in there, but if a gutter or not a gutter, a culvert is needed.
Mhm.
Is that supplied by the city, the owner, and who's it maintained by?
So the culvert is supplied by the builder, the contractor, or the homeowner. It is not supplied by the city. We don't carry culverts. But however, once they are installed, if they're in a public right of way, we typically keep them clean.
It needs to be at least 15 inches, right?
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
So Tom, can you clarify, so I understood that, back to the fee again, we're just gonna strike that line out?
Yes, I
Okay.
apologize. I was
fine.
supposed to eliminate that before I presented you the draft and I overlooked that.
Nope, that's fine. Just want to make sure I was tracking correctly.
Additional questions for Tom? I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move that we approve the driveway standard as presented to the council here tonight.
I'll second.
Can I clarify? We're gonna strike
With
the
that,
one line item. Thank
yeah.
you. Okay.
And this was that striking of that line.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Recommendation from Planning Commission reference, Planning Commission appointment. Appointments.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much. Josh Young's current term on the Planning Commission ended on 1/31/2023. And the Planning Commission has made a recommendation to the City Council to appoint Josh Young to a new 4-year term running from 2/1/23 to 1/31/2027. In addition, Danny Mendel was interviewed on the 26th of January for the Open Planning Commission seat. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation to the City Council to appoint Mr. Mendel to a 3-year term expiring on 1/31/2026. Also, at that same meeting, the planning chair and the vice chair were nominated. So Josh Young as the chair and Gary Harris again as the vice chair.
Anyone have any questions for Bethany? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the planning commission appointments of Josh Young to a new 4-year term as planning commit
The planning
chair,
commission chair.
excuse me.
That's an annual appointment, so they'll just
Yep.
choose that annually.
And also to approve Danny Mendel for the open planning commission seat.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is recommendation from the planning commission reference ordinance amendment for short-term rentals.
Late last year, Crow Wing County repealed their countywide public health regulated short-term rental ordinance and moved it into their zoning ordinance. On January 3rd, the new zoning based ordinance was adopted and is now only applicable where Crow Wing County has or maintains regulatory authority. In order to continue to have Crow Wing County regulate STRs in Nisswa, Nisswa will need to adopt the new ordinance language, which will allow Crow Wing County to administer the short-term rental ordinance under the authority of the city of Nisswa. I'd like to be clear that the adoption of the new ordinance language, the associated fee schedule, and agreement allows the city of Nisswa to continue to have Crow Wing County administer our short-term rental licensing as they have been for the last couple of years. And we are currently not seeking to change how Nisswa has been regulating STRs. Once the new ordinance is in place, the city of Nisswa and Crow Wing County can enter an agreement and a contract for the county to administer this STR ordinance. Enforcement, complaints, and appeals will be handled by the county, but any prosecution will be referred to our city attorney. There will be no cost to the city at this time, and all licensing fees will be collected by Crow Wing County. Currently, there are approximately 32 STRs located within the Nisswa city limits. At this point, we have no regulation for them. The approval of this ordinance amendment was recommended by the Planning Commission at the February 7th regular Planning Commission meeting. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help.
If I may also add, that was approved by the planning commission based off a pretty lengthy conversation, which I think was rather insightful for all to have and to be heard. We discussed pretty thoroughly that with us as a city having such a lack of restrictions for, frankly, everything in that short-term rental process, and us being such a unique economic town that we are with tourism and the major resort that we have right in our backyard, it's something that needs to be considered, and I'm asking all of you here to think rather pretty deeply about. This is just based off my personal observation of, let's just say, Grandview Lodge, some other mom and pop resorts. If we have individuals come through this city, they are going to have a wide variety of options for lodging options now, especially with the feasibility of an app on your phone to go to Airbnb, VRBO, find a home that's half the price of what any of these resorts are paying, or maybe even $100 less. A lot of those dollars do not really go through the city, really whatsoever. We don't have a sales tax net for now, but that also then pushes them away from potentially some city amenities or amenities that these resorts offer. Resorts are a huge economic backbone in this area, always have been. We hope they will be, because that's utilizing our main resources, which is the lakes. My whole point I made with the planning commission was to at least understand the economic and perhaps direct or even not indirect consequences from when these types of transactions take place. And I say this with no motive or no basis, just with an open mind, that when we have dozens or maybe 100+ families or individuals that are going into a group setting and they're finding a rental home, that detracts from the resorts that employ in part many individuals within this area. It's a large driving force outside of, say, the school district per se. We don't have that much other industry, especially within Nisswa. So with us adopting the Crow Wing County, at least for now, we're still working with the county to have them abide through their set ordinances, or I should say, restrictions. Yep.
Licensing requirements.
Yes. To at least have something in place for the time being. If we were to adopt our own and be a little bit more stringent, obviously there's going to be much more time that's going to be required from our current staff, potentially even a part or full-time individual to monitor and enforce this. But I want to make it known, especially on record, that I'm very weary about it because I have gone both ways personally with renting a short-term rental like this or going to an actual resort. So I had talked to Bethany about, at the planning commission meeting, at least being diligent of potentially creating our own, maybe working in conjunction with some of the other neighboring cities that are around Gull Lake, where a lot of this is going to be prevalent. So it's a kind of a unique situation with short-term rentals. That's why I asked Chief Taylor if he's had any incidences that he could at least enlighten us on. Because there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to that. And if we're going down that path right now, actually in the past decade where it's been at, it's probably going to continue to increase. And let's just take Grandview Lodge's $30+ million investment they've made in our community. I would really hate to see us turn our backs to them with no support to protect what they've done. That's more or less a betterment and an asset to our community. So that's my point that I'm making here. So I would suggest that we support this for the time being, but maybe have something at least in our foresights to try to plan for.
Yeah, I just had a question, and this is a very basic, but currently Nisswa has nothing for regulating short-term rentals. Previously, I guess I'm reading that Crow Wing County, they have repealed their countywide public health regulations for short-term rentals. Did they previously handle that for Nisswa as well?
Mhm.
No?
Yeah.
Yes.
They did,
Yeah.
yes, they
They did.
enacted an ordinance that applied countywide under their public health
Okay.
umbrella.
So none of the cities or towns around here has their own ordinances. This is all done by Crow Wing County.
Was.
Was.
Now,
Yeah.
there is the option, we have to choose if we want to have our own, or if we want to contract with the county. They said they would be open to doing that. But then a city, if they wanted to have your own tighter regulations, other rules, restrictions, then you could go that route now. Previously, under the public health umbrella, you couldn't do that as a city because the county overrode the cities.
And my, I guess, further my point, and I don't mean to continue to ramble, but we're a much more unique area with our 18.36 square miles and the very unique distinct properties we have compared to just a Brainerd, Baxter, right? If we wanted to enact something like that, it was presented to us that, well, we would have to establish our own fees. So establishing our own fees, such as these 32 short-term rentals, we would enact $500 annual fee to be able to be considered to be qualified to be a part of this within the city, to be registered more or less, right? Could be $1,000. I get caught in between because I want to support. We live in capitalism, capitalistic economy. You should be able to profit off your home if you so want to, but also walk the fine line of trying to maintain what is so good already in our area too. So for now, I think this is the best route.
I
And-
can provide some information on what that licensure requires of a short-term rental. For Crow Wing County, they do an in-depth septic analysis to make sure that the septic system is sized for the amount of people that they're advertising for. That's just a way to protect groundwater and public health. They also make sure that they have a 24-hour contact, so that if there are any problems, if they do receive any noise complaints, that there is a 24-hour contact on file. They have a hotline that they encourage people to call with these complaints. They also basically comb through all Airbnb, VRBO, on a variety of other websites on a rotating basis to make sure that every advertised listing in our county, or in this instance in our city, would be properly licensed. If they weren't properly licensed, then they would send them a letter.
We don't
requiring
have
them.
the manpower to do that.
No.
That,
So-
the county's gonna take care of that for us, to Jesse's point, maybe someday in the future.
Yeah.
We do, I don't know, but again, this is an evolving market too. I mean.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
would-
gonna, everything will,
We would have multiple choices. We could rescind this at any point. We could
Right.
change this at any point. We would either be able to prohibit them, which would require enforcement. We could not regulate them at all, which would be the easiest, but I don't think the most desirable. We could have Crow Wing County do as they are. However, we can't deviate from that. If they're going to enforce and regulate and administer this, they have to do it per these parameters. And then, of course, we have the ability to create and administer and enforce and regulate our own.
One direction that I just would like to add to look at it is we don't have the staff right now to do it on ourselves, correct? So before we could have a discussion like this, we'd have staffing issues, also take on more liability to the city with something like this, where the liability is held at the county level. And then B, currently, even though we do have all these resorts, if anybody has tried to call, I'll say last minute, even a month or two ahead, to book a booking at any of these resorts for throughout the summer, you're just out of luck. So, is the need still there for this? Absolutely. Does it still bring revenue in to eat at the restaurants at Grandview downtown? Yes. We very much do not want to exclude this from our town because the need is very much there and the resorts are already full. So I don't, if the resorts were half empty, maybe a different discussion, but for right now, they're full. So just different viewpoint.
any further questions, Zach? Nope. Can I get, excuse me, get a motion?
I will make a motion from the planning commission for the ordinance amendment for short-term rentals.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank
Mayor Ryan, can I please also have a motion to publish the ordinance summary in the newspaper?
I will make said motion.
And I'll second.
Second by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Number 8, approve new police department policies,
Number 7, please.
or 7. What?
Adopting.
I thought we did that.
Oh,
We adopted the
This is,
ordinance, and now we need to adopt the agreement and the license
Oh,
fee. So just step 2 for this. So this is the
Okay.
agreement that we will execute with the county.
Yeah.
And adopting, we have to also adopt the license fees that are just go right to the county.
Well, I so move.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Now can I go to 8? Okay. Okay, approve new police department policies. Chief?
No,
I don't think you can go through them. I know.
I think I could do it quicker than Jeremy did his presentation.
The one thing I did, I went through all the policies that the chief presented to us. I read through them, and then when you sent out that letter, that second email, that helped because I was trying to figure out where all those other policies, so that made sense. Okay. But the one thing I did ask the chief, there's the one policy I talked with them about. Their Lexipol seemed to have like 3-4 different entities in the department of who somebody had to talk to. So obviously that was a bigger department, larger department. Here you would talk to the chief or his designee. And then Craig said, and correct me if I'm wrong, chief, but you can fix that. You don't have to go to Lexipol to fix language, like the minimum, who do they call?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So if anyone else read that and was confused, it could be
What,
fixed.
do you know what specifically the policy
That was
set in?
the
The firearms,
Huh?
firearms?
No, it was the firearms was the different one. We talked about that, but the one I was referring to was the drug enforcement or the drug policy when they're doing search warrants and stuff. And it had talked to the chief or his designee. Great. Then it said, talk to the drug supervisor.
Yes.
And then it's like, obviously Lexipol pulls some of this stuff from their database of who they've all done policies for, I would assume.
Right, and that should have been corrected. I have not maybe I could get with you.
Oh, yeah.
And we can nail where that specifically is. It's just a matter of just one click of the mouse to fix that. So,
Actually
yeah.
have it at home, highlighted on my computer. If I
You
can
do?
get My printer to connect to my Wi-Fi. Maybe I'll call Jeremy.
as long as I'm not
Computer,
blocked
my
on your
wife, my
phone.
computer and my printer don't want to talk. They're
So if you
having
can tell me which it is, I'll fix that. and then we
Okay.
can- And there, if there are other mistakes like that, they're easily corrected. So.
Right. I just didn't know if anyone else had read that stuff or whatever, so.
Yeah, do you have any questions for me or, no?
No. I'd make a motion that we'd approve the new police policy.
I'll second that.
I do have one question if I could.
Well,
Just to clarify, we're gonna have these 6 that you listed, these policies, they will survive, so to speak, the ones that weren't included here. You know,
Oh,
mental
yeah,
health and
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
We'll have a short
Yes.
internal policy list and then your main one as you continue to work through it.
Right, so what you're referring, there's some policies that we had in existence that are not addressed in the new policy. Those, you should not consider those to be repealed. They still in existence, even though they're not in this. I just need to figure out how we're gonna incorporate them into this format. And a policy will stay valid until you repeal it or we replace it.
Right.
So, you know, there's certain things, mental health policy, whatnot, wellness policy, that still exists, it's just not here.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Request from Nature Link to purchase property owned by the city of Nisswa.
there is somebody here who would like to talk about that.
If there's anyone here let's okay, so we'll hear public comment first
Sure.
and go from there.
I have to recuse myself from voting on this in the future here now, because I am directly affected by this decision.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Potoff, and I'm here to speak to this request. As a bit of background, my grandfather purchased Minnewawa Lodge in 1931. And when my father sold the resort, Minnewawa Lodge, we kept all the property that the resort proper was not part of. That property, there's 100 feet that we get access to through the property that my dad gave to the city of Nisswa in September of 1993. He gave it to the city for easement issues regarding, there's a part of it that was then just the neighbors, the Browns, that their driveway went through part of the property that my father owned. And I think now there's even more people down that driveway than back in the 90s. And then also there's 100 feet of property we own that we can only access through there without an easement, because the rest of the property, we had to get an easement from the DNR to access it. So there are just legal easement issues. That is why my dad gave the property to the city of Nisswa. It just made it easier for everyone. So I would ask that the city of Nisswa keep its ownership in good faith when my father gave it to the city for these easement issues. So that is my request. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me. But I don't see a need to make it more legally complicated for people to access their property.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy.
Do you want me to go up to that picture and I can? You want me to point out a few things?
Can we
on
get
there?
it blown out a little further, or is that as far as we
Yeah,
can
can
get
we
it?
zoom it out a
You
little?
know,
Well, that's good. A little bit, but this is the page in the packet.
does it-
bigger. When my father sold the property, he had all this land. When he built his new home, it was way up over here. He sold his old home here. And then gave this parcel to the city because of the easement. Yeah, and then easement, and Irene Lane, for like Edwards. Residents, they got that. That, you know, was put in the easements.
Where it says South Park Lake Road, is that the driveway into the resort?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now I know where I'm at. Now it makes more sense.
You know, now Lewis Junior, he'd be affected. And then this is the remaining property that really being in my wife's name. We already have a meeting on the other side. And she would like to have not have an easement there, but to be able to still use that as an access because it's a public road. But
So it's a public road rather than the DNR road,
it's owned by
easement.
the- Right, it's owned by the city.
Okay.
It's owned by the city. We don't maintain much of this section at all. When the request came forward, was something that just automatically we worked towards getting in front of the council to gauge some perspective and interest from the council. As I was looking at this, realizing right away that this parcel that belongs to Mr. Lubin has direct access off of this parcel, and that's an issue. We want to make sure that property owners have access to their land. And so I had mentioned that right away to the requester Nature Link to see if they were aware of this, to send any feedback, which I had included in the packet. But then upon further looking at it some more, and you stare at the map long enough, you realize that you have Irene Lane and you have all of these parcels as well that have access off of this parcel. So it's pretty complicated based on how the configuration is of the roads, wanting to make you aware of that, and certainly consideration that we don't want to create any problems for property owners. Certainly we'll defer to Mr. Pearson if he has any feedback or council conversation or questions.
Well, I do have a question, is that why do they want it? Why do they want to purchase it?
I don't know that they gave me the specifics, aside from what I understand, they want to clean up the parcel. It's the entrance into the resort, so I think that's part of what they're looking to do. It's logical, makes logical sense if they're trying to expand their footprint as well, that they're just trying to provide themselves more options for the resort. I don't know a lot of the details, but I would anticipate that's part of that. But I do believe Councilmember Fraley had mentioned that they wanted to do some work to clean up that piece of land as sort of the entrance into their resort. Is that fair statement?
Right, in a conversation with one of the owners of Nature Link, they when asking why this triangle, the comment was that they wanted to clean it up because it, you know, there's some old trees, there's some down trees. It looks kind of not so nice. But my question is, why could not they work with the city to get permission to clean it up if that's what they want to clean it up? Come to the city, say, you know, we'd like to do this. Can we have permission to do it? If there's, you know, there may be another reason, but I don't know.
Honestly, I think with all things considered, I don't really want to have to put a foot down and say, no, I don't think that we should sell this to you, or that we should. I'd rather go that route. Why not explore the easiest option before we relinquish city property that was given to the city? I respect those types of things and appreciate the historical. That's a very historical lodge. Very. That site is.
We still have the original deed from the 1800s.
That's like the Magna Carta.
Well, in all practicality, if there's ever stop me if I'm going down a bad avenue, Tom, but if there's ever a easement issue for anyone that owns property adjacent to it, it's a lot easier to deal with the city because we're not going anywhere. As opposed to who owns it now, who ends up owning it later, who ends up owning it 50 years from now. Wouldn't it just be as easy to just deal with us? I mean.
Yeah,
we'll have-
So-
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions along that, a lot of these roads were put in, and even like Main Street here. It was never properly deeded with all the easements to the parcels in the property, and we find that throughout the city.
Mhm.
Do we know if all this road is all deeded with easements and accesses? And then also, I mean, there's no measurements on here, but the setbacks from the road anyhow, is not the city of Nisswa going to already own that anyhow for setbacks and stuff? I guess I don't, it's hard to see without a survey on this, if that makes sense, I'm looking to the city attorney and. Mhm. Sure. So then on the north end though, too, is that not, does it not shoot us in the foot as the city giving us access to the back parcel that's connected to it that the city owns? Coming in on the north side of that property, according to this map provided, we own a secondary parcel that encompasses the smaller parcel. and
No,
that
that's not the city's. It's in the city of Nisswa on the map.
that's not a-
No,
okay,
that's just how it
Okay.
stamps that way,
So-
sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, that is if you were to go to the east side line. This is the Lake Edward boundary. Right there. There was some, if you want to look at these, all the legal easements that have been over the years, were in there, a lot of those were handshakes with the Browns. But then it was written into the deeds about, I can't have an easement. I already named, they have an easement, it was Browns at that time. But I think right here, I can't remember, it's about 27 or 37 feet wide. And close to 100 feet at the top. Are you worried about the 30, the 66, right?
yeah, I'm just wondering what the right of way is, in there in the public road, it's, I'm just wondering if. We're saying, yeah, we'll sell it back to you, but we already own it no matter what anyhow, if it's just a moot point. Because it's basically like selling the ditch to somebody. But, so our current statutes in the city do not allow for any more private roads, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody?
Correct. I think the difference is those, that section is not maintained the way that the rest of city roads are. So we're not. It's basically a low maintenance road. Is that fair, Tom? That section, we don't plow past that, the south end of that parcel, so we don't do a lot of maintenance, a little bit, but very minimal. Yeah.
So is this a public road? Yes. And right now, our ordinance does not allow a private road in the city limits, correct?
Well, it's a public road to the north line, the approximate 100-foot wide. That's where,
Right.
that's what.
Yes, you're right.
But if
You're
the
right.
intent of purchasing this property is to make the road private, that is not allowed by current statute within the city.
In new development.
I think this would probably fall under a grandfathered in issue. Similar to Linden, East West Linden, and all those which are only 50-foot right of ways. It would be the same thing if that property was to be abandoned. Or if those are already city right of ways, they're 50 feet. I see what you're, I understand. what you're saying.
I guess, I don't know, I'm looking for somebody other than me to clearly define that for us. I'm asking, if Bethany or Jenny or the city attorney knows the clear definition on that.
if you were to, excuse me, agree to sell this parcel, something in that process, a deed restriction or something else would outline that that remains a city road through there. And there are a lot of other nuts and bolts to this, right?
Right.
There's engineering, there's legal descriptions, there's probably a requirement of a survey. There's probably an appraisal that needs to happen here. There's a lot of stuff that would have to happen. So I really think for tonight's purposes, we're just talking about a concept here. And if the concept is something the city wants to explore, then staff and myself will go to work on that. And my additional recommendation is, if there is gravity toward that, that you require the requester to pay for all of it.
I would agree with that. Furthermore, I think we've discussed pretty thoroughly as a group here, whether it's a workshop or here at a regular council meeting, that we're looking to obtain land. I get that this is not in the downtown central business district of Nisswa. However, if the true purpose of the acquisition of this land by NatureLink is to actually just clear up the area, so it's a little bit more appealing to its operations there, I would gladly load up any of us in my truck with some chainsaws and go help. Now, yeah, and I'm offering that to NatureLink if they're watching. So on that, that's my stance on it. I don't see the full point of this right now.
To move this along a little quicker, can I make a motion?
Yeah.
That's okay with that?
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request from NatureLink to purchase the property owned by the city of Nisswa as presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention.
Tom's been standing there, though.
Well,
Did you have
He's gonna start plowing it.
discussion?
All I was gonna say is, I was under the impression that no one else was was using that road as an access. It was simply serving the resort. So at that point, it becomes a driveway, it's really that we're maintaining. So once there becomes multiple properties, then I think it probably should remain a public road. That's the difference. We aren't, to Joe's point, we are not allowing new roads to be built that are private.
Correct.
All right. Item number 10, approved 2023 pay equity report.
We're doing good.
Yes, the city has passed all of the tests that are required from the state. This is required every 3 years. That our pay scales are in compliance and that meet all the criteria. So that's about as well as I can explain it.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 pay equity report as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 11. This was one of the late additions. This is the request from the Public Works Department to purchase a portable or used portable generator.
So as I described in the council request for action, what this generator was supposed to be was originally a brand new generator that we were looking at. We're having difficulty obtaining even quotes to get a new generator of this type. What we're looking to do is the generator we currently use is a 1991. And it was bought new with the original sewer installation. So we were looking to upgrade that for one. And if you're familiar at all with generators, most of the newer ones have a sound package in them. They're a lot quieter. One we have is pretty industrial and fairly loud. It has relatively low hours, but it's good shape. After talking with the staff,
they would like to keep that one for a short time while we're installing standby generators at the individual lift stations. So we'll be using this new to us generator as the primary generator. The other one will be one that will be used in neighborhoods where sound isn't as critical. And once we have enough standby generators at the lift stations, we will probably sell the old one.
My only question, I guess, would be just service contract for that amount of money, which is like 15% of that total generator. It's just for 1 year.
Yeah, I think what we were looking at on that was being it's used, they're not providing any kind of warranty
Right.
outside of the service contract.
Yeah,
For us, it was a way to evaluate the condition of the thing.
sure. No, I,
There are a couple shorter versions we can, I apologize, I don't think I have them in front of me. It was a 6-month option and I think a 3-month option too. So we could go to a lesser
right.
service contract.
But whenever we go buy something used, new, or excuse me, used or new to us, it's just like getting something at the auction, it runs or it doesn't. And when you get it, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I would imagine that there's probably some tolerance here that we know that it's not gonna come smelling like a new car. I mean, most of the used generators that we purchase, it's all based off the hours and how it's been maintained, really.
Correct.
If their maintenance logs look good on these things and it's been primarily well oiled, right? And greased. I don't know if it's worth considering removing that line, but do you have any input, Joe? I know you got equipment background.
It's a horse apiece, I think, though.
Yeah.
It
I'm
kind of
no
is.
mechanic.
Yeah.
I'm not a mechanic either, but what I
Right.
would say is. Yeah, I agree with you. The cost of the service contract is probably a little steep. The city is usually doesn't purchase used equipment.
Right.
This is the only piece of used equipment we've purchased in the 15 years I've been here.
Right.
So
Do you know, is this piece of equipment problematic in anything that you know about in your research?
I'm relying on Mike's research on this, so.
Yeah, I
Yep.
can go either way on that. I see the benefit in it.
How many hours does our loud 1991 generator have on it? Do we happen to know?
I could find out for you, but
Uh-huh.
it's, I believe,
Is it,
1,000 or less. It's
It's
not very
what?
many, 1,000 or less.
okay. So this current one has 3,745 that we're looking at.
Correct,
So the other one has just less than 1,000 or less.
right. It's just, it's not as modern of a design. This
Mhm.
was probably somewhere where it's ran 24/7.
Right.
Yeah.
And ours isn't. Ours is hit or miss. It's when we have thunderstorms or whatever that knock the power out, or like this last snow
Right.
event that knocked trees down.
So this one that you would want to buy will be the primary one, and
Correct,
the loud one will be the backup.
correct.
Now, if we don't use the backup very often, will it keep working? I don't know much about generators.
So we do employ a generator company that takes care of our standbys too. And we do have them checked out
Mhm.
on a regular basis.
And you run it periodically or something?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah, we will put it under load, to make sure it works.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yep.
I know it's been difficult to get information just across the board with a lot of things. Did we seek out a second quote?
We did.
Okay.
Ziegler Cat was one of the other ones. I don't know if Mike looked at others, but I know that that was one he mentioned that he had, and they never got back.
They didn't respond. So as long as we have a documentation that we attempted to seek out, it's the nature of what it is these days, but that's perfect. So thank you.
I'm all for the generator personally. Service contracts, it breaks down, it's because it's a used lemon. Where they're gonna come swap the oil, put some filters in. If we have a service company already, $5,000, $5,400 is a nice chunk of cash.
Sure.
I
Does
guess,
the service contract have any warranty aspects or is it just for the service?
good question.
Do we know?
I would have to find out and get back to you.
I think that'd be the big caveat for me too, personally, because what's the point of it already if it's used? If we're getting extended warranty on it, but I don't think so, because why would they cap it at 1 year?
We have a special council meeting coming up on February 27th, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we bring this up again at that time?
Could I
Or
interject though? A piece of equipment like this isn't on hold or reserve, and maybe it's a time sensitive thing that you can speak to that we just want to make a decision tonight, move on.
My guess is we could probably do something with a service contract, but as far as purchasing the equipment, I believe the 22nd
22nd.
was what Mike had listed as a deadline.
Okay, so then I would make a motion that we move ahead with it and forego the service contract and roll the dice.
Fine with me.
And personally, I don't like to nitpick things or critique, but that's just from my experience with all of our hundreds of pieces of equipment that doesn't amount to much. It's like going to Best Buy, buying a brand new TV saying you want the 2-year replacement warranty. Well, no, it's
Sure.
sitting on my dang wall. It's
Yeah.
not gonna do anything. So that's, I guess, my point on, so I agree.
Well, the other is that you could buy it and then later on, if you need it, you can go ahead with a service contract if there's a warranty with it. But then you'd have to come back for that, I guess, but
I'll second the motion.
yeah.
So. Although, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Recommendation, oh, wait.
Community impact. Number
Community,
12.
yeah. Number 12, community impact funding application. Jenny.
Thank you. So my request is council consideration. There's a short timeline. I've been trying to keep watch for when this community impact funding round would open up for 2023. And it opened up a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it has a very short turnaround to get something back. So my recommendation tonight is a little bit different than the approach I took last year with this. Again, it was a short window last year, and I threw together an application for the city water project that we were looking at. This year, I'd like some feedback on looking to apply for the 2 backage roads that we've been talking about. To me, those feel a little more tangible and doable in a shorter time frame than the city water conversation that we've been having. We want to continue to vet and work through that, but that's, I think, going to take it's going to have a longer lead time to work through those details. So that was kind of my thought, was to see if we could put something together for that. Roughly, the request would be approximately $5 million for both roads to complete both of them. I can talk about the impact improvements to the highway with some safety issues we've been experiencing. The economic development opportunities that it would open up for the city, which I think would be something that would be really, really well received. So I'm looking for your feedback on that. And also, if you would recommend that I include construction of lift station 12 in that request as well. So it's a little more comprehensive than just the roads. But I'm trying to find that if I have, get an idea of what that number is, that might seem reasonable. These projects are all across the board from less than $1 million to 50 million. And what might something be appealing to our legislators for? So with that brief intro, I'll open for questions.
So immediately, yes, you have to include the lift station.
Yes.
We've seen that it doesn't work to put the road down first and then do the sewer second. So we gotta do it in the right order.
And to be clear, putting in the infrastructure, the pipe for even water and things like that, that would be a part of the road. But the constructing the full lift station and the force main and all of that, I wanted to make sure that that's a
Correct,
separate
because that lift
clarification.
main, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, that lift main goes underneath a section of those roads planned and designed, correct? The lift main, the force main would go underneath a big section of the roads that's currently planned
Those new
that
backage
12
roads.
on the backage road.
There's that yet to be designed, but yes.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
So we'd have to do it all together.
Mhm.
And I really like the idea that you're looking at this because it'll help to take, traffic off of the Roy Lake Road. But the one thing I'm just greedy a little bit. Can't you do both?
I am looking at both,
Yeah.
both
I mean,
sides.
oh, and the water?
Oh, no, no. Oh, I see. I see. what you mean.
And add that
I
in
think they
too.
balked at that money.
That's just not a feasible option from their perspective.
We just gotta get some of the legislature. Klobuchar, Smith and Stauber up here, let them see our beautiful area. And convince them why it's
Yeah.
necessary down the road, but I think this is a good approach for right now. We already had a failed attempt with the city water this time last year, so let's go get something instead of nothing.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
this,
We need to do
this
this.
came unsuspected, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you had no idea it was coming in.
So once again, if anybody wants to chime in, has MinDOT not already expressed that they would also be in favor of this if we closed off the access onto Hazelwood there? And
They-
did a roundabout that they would also partner on some level with this?
Yes, they are very, MinDOT is very supportive of our proposed plans and the ideas we have. They will be undergoing a study this spring, summer that will help give them direction for what they would like to do for improvements in 2031. So my hesitation is to wait that long. Funding probably won't come from MinDOT until that time or closer to that time. So while they're supportive of it, they can't commit any dollars, they can't guarantee anything, and we'd be waiting quite a few years. So that was just my thought.
Is it something then that if we were short on this to complete this and MinDOT was still in support of it, that they would pay us back in 2031? Would that be an option that we could look at?
I think that's certainly an option, yeah.
Okay. But we don't know,
No,
right?
yeah.
But those are all
Yeah.
things that we can explore with this.
Absolutely, yes.
So, yeah, I
As long
would,
as the council's supportive of that, that's what I'll plan. I'll provide the completed information to you, so you have it for reference, but just wanted to make sure that I proceeded forward with your support in this way, and then we'll see where it goes.
Do we need a vote on that?
Yes, that'd be great if you can just support the concept.
I'll make a motion that we approve the community impact funding application as discussed. Oh.
Question, the backage roads and this whole concept, the water was kind of a central part of
Yes.
that.
right.
Yes.
So we're gonna be building roads without the water mains, and am I correct?
No,
No,
I would,
hope that we
I
put
would
the water in
say,
it.
that, this is a topic of conversation probably for next week also with this, because once again, why would we put in, just like the sewer? Maybe we can't do the full water tower thing, but I would definitely think in this area that we would accommodate for water for the future to
Okay.
at least get the ball rolling. So yes, depending upon how that is written, we'd want sewer and water underneath the road.
Well, that's why I would understand it, but I guess when it was presented, I was under the impression that the water was being excluded.
I would say the water tower whole concept, but I would say the mains underneath the road should be part of this.
Yes.
So we have sewer, water, if we need curb and gutter, whatever else we might need to make these roads
Which will be,
up to standard. is
which
what
will
we
be the
wanna look
first
at.
of its kind for Nisswa, so
Right.
we'll really have a good case study there as to what this is going to entail for hookups and. Okay, so should I modify that motion then?
My intent was to include water lines underneath these roads, like, costs for that.
Right.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, right,
Infrastructure, yep.
complete infrastructure for these roads.
Okay.
Right.
How that connects ultimately to a water
Well,
system.
The motion was kind of blanket in regards to the request, so I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Think so.
Second, I second.
The only other question I have or discussion item I have is. We'd have to wait to see what happens, whether we get anything or not, so that would be the time for my question. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Do any council members, there's no old business, do any of the council members have any council reports they wanted to put out there?
As far as a report,
Anything they wanted to say or get on record,
for
Council
next
reports.
month, I guess I would like to see the recycling thing on the agenda to talk about. and to try and finally get a resolution done on it. That would be,
Planning and
but-
zoning, are they still going through that, or is that Public Works going through that about?
Public Works is going through that right now.
Okay, and
yep,
It's gonna be on tomorrow's meeting at Public Works. They're gonna be
so
discussing
will they have something?
a portion of the sub
Not the recycling
Curbside.
center itself, but
curbside
more,
recycling.
yeah, curbside recycling.
yep, that, whatever, that Tom is able to come back to us, this month, and in March, we can make a decision and move ahead. So.
Anyone else have anything?
I have nothing.
No,
Okay, I have nothing. We're now gonna move into closed session. And we'll re-adjourn, or we will come out of closed session simply to adjourn. So we'll take a couple minutes, everybody can kind of,
5-7 minutes.
5-10 minutes, everybody.
oh, we don't need a motion.
We will, we can do the motion and
If we give a motion to move to closed session.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we have a closed session for, for the closed session items.
pursuant to,
You could just.
Let's see,
read the
pursuant to the
motion.
Minnesota statutes 13D .05 subdivision 3C.
I'll second.
Second.
all those in favor?
I.
Aye. Carried.